Our second reading this morning is also from Matthew 26. It's verses 69 to 75. Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came up to him and said, "You were also with Jesus the Galilean." But he denied it before them all, saying, "I do not know what you mean." And when he went out to the entrance, another servant girl saw him, and she said to the bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." And again he denied it with an oath, "I do not know the man." After a little while, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you too are one of them, for your accent betrays you." Then he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, "I do not know the man." And immediately the rooster crowed. And Peter remembered the saying of Jesus, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly.
It's odd to read this text on a balmy September morning. It's a story we usually tell by candlelight in the hushed and somber shadows of a Maundy Thursday service during Holy Week. There, properly embedded in the Passion of Christ, we feel its full weight and power. It's there we gasp when the cock crows and the force of Peter's renouncement is exposed. Yet it's also lost in the narrative raging ahead to the cross. I thought as we explore the person of Peter, Apostle Supreme, it would be good to hit the pause button, to stop and consider this passage all on its own. What is really going on here? Why would Peter do such a thing? Why might we? What does this story have to teach us about discipleship and God and, of course, ourselves? The Passover meal has been shared. Jesus has named his betrayer and predicted Peter's denial. Late in the evening, he leads them to the Garden of Gethsemane so he might pray. Suddenly, Judas is there with a cohort of armed temple authorities to arrest Jesus. Peter, ever eager, cuts off the ear of the chief priest's servant, which symbolically is a warning shot across the bow, meaning, leave Jesus alone. But Jesus admonishes him, in effect reminding all of them, this is my fate. The plot thickens quickly. Jesus is taken to Caiaphas' house for interrogation. The seriousness of the situation is dawning. Peter, waiting outside the chief priest's house, is accosted 3 times. Wait a minute. You were with him. You are one of them. Your accent gives you away. I do not know him. I do not know him. I do not know him, is Peter's reply. And then the cock crows, and he remembers, and he weeps. Now let's begin with the obvious. Peter flat out lies about his relationship with Jesus. But lying is something we all do, isn't it? You see, lying is a cultural art form. Not every lie is terrible. It's all about someone's intent. A white lie is one offered to spare another's feelings. A white lie is what your partner tells you when you come home a week after your honeymoon, having cut all your beautiful long hair into a pixie style. It looks just great, your spouse says, between clenched teeth. Not that that ever happened to me or anything. A black lie is equally easy to spot. It's when the purpose of the fabrication is to hurt another, to defame another, to blame another, or deliberately mislead another in order to obstruct the truth. I don't think I need to belabor this one further. It's on the news every night. But there are other shades of lies too. A cream-colored lie is one intended to enhance one's image, to increase one's favorability rating, to embellish one's self-esteem. It's telling your boss the traffic was terrible instead of the truth, you overslept. It's exaggerating your expertise just enough to land yourself that coveted job. It's assuring someone they are the most important person in your life, not for his or her benefit, but to secure something you want or need. And finally, there are gray lies. The falsehoods we utter in an effort to protect ourselves from unwanted truths or consequences. This is Peter's territory. A gray lie is, in medical parlance, one of many human defense mechanisms. Mental processes that disable our ability to admit or recognize or resolve anything perceived as harmful to our well-being. Believe it or not, it was Sigmund Freud and his daughter Anna who first introduced this concept to the world of psychology. Yet the reality of defense mechanisms is as old as time. Repression of a painful event, projection of one's pain onto others, displacement of feelings onto others, rationalization, minimization, and yes, denial are all ways of coping with unwanted realities, threats, and uncomfortable feelings like fear, shame, guilt. When in doubt, just deny the problem exists, employing lies in the process as necessary. We didn't take that $20 bill. What's a little denial, you might ask? As one cartoon character says, it's not denial. I'm just very selective about the reality I accept. We all hide things under the rug, don't we? We all prefer to avoid unpleasant situations, but consider the addict who refuses to admit there's a problem, and the constellation of people who are hurt in that process. Consider a newly diagnosed cancer patient who cannot accept the reality of his illness and sabotages viable treatment options. Or the woman in an abusive relationship who cannot face her fears of breaking free and tells everyone it really isn't that bad. Any of these strategies can be conscious or unconscious. Indeed, for those who have experienced trauma, denial can be a gift, something that truly does protect them while their situation is gently and lovingly unpacked. Was Peter conscious of what he was doing in denying Christ? Given the intense drama that was unfolding and the bitter tears that engulfed him as the cock crowed at dawn, I wonder. Friends, what's important is not that people recognize their denial, but that they feel safe enough to accept the underlying realities that cause it in the first place. What scares us so much? What feelings emerge in our hearts and in our minds and in our fantasies that make lying worth more than telling the truth? What are we really afraid of? Harm? Rejection? Judgment? Change? Uncertainty? Suffering? You see, denial and Freud's other defense mechanisms do work. They work. But the ruin they cause to our souls, our peace of heart, and our potential, and that of others, is profound. Jesus predicts Peter's denial and that of the other disciples, not because he thinks they're clueless and hopeless. Jesus sees all the ways we practice denial, and we do. Not because we're inadequate and pathetic, but because he knows we are human. And self-preservation is a primal urge. The good news he comes to share is that in him there is no reality that is too hard to bear. That the love of God transcends our worst fears, even the fear of death itself. There's a cross in our faith for a reason, friends, and a resurrection from the tombs we lay ourselves down in if we but roll away the stones. Then Jesus told his disciples, if any wish to come after me, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it. And those who lose their life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit them if they gain the whole world but forfeit their life? By these words, Jesus is not inviting us into a world of self-abnegation or blind self-sacrifice. He is assuring us that nothing can separate us from the love of God, and all the ways we try to save our lives and spare ourselves pain and suffering, all the ways we try to deny reality and lie to others and ourselves, accomplish nothing, and ultimately keep us from experiencing and embodying this love. My friends, as we break the bread and drink the cup, let us remember our humanity, that dismantling defense mechanisms is hard work, that breaking through denial takes courage, that facing hard truths and fearsome emotions is a process, not an event. For those who have loved ones in this space, I urge you to practice compassion to the extent you are able. And if you are not, remember to trust God.